This is a beautiful country that's blessed with an abundance of natural resources. From them, we trade. Public welfare should be supported by sound finance. Therefore, banking plays a very significant role in the national financial institution that promotes and maintains financial system stability. From us, for IDIC.
Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg's K1 Ha.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? All right. Welcome to the Bloomberg CEO Forum. It's so great to be gathered here with all of you at such a really important moment for Indonesia as it transitions to a new government administration. Such exciting times. Of course, it's lovely to have you here, whether you're joining us virtually or here in the room. From all of us at Bloomberg, a very warm welcome. We're delighted to have you here. Today, we're going to be discussing the trends, risks, and opportunities that Indonesia is facing as we move toward the administration of President Prabowo Subianto. What exciting times. We're, of course, here in Southeast Asia's largest economy, worth $1 trillion right now. The question is, can Indonesia really continue to rise to the challenge and become a high-income market by 2045? That's one of the questions that we're going to be tackling up here on stage. Of course, we're going to be also talking about whether or not there's enough being done in terms of improving digital infrastructure and whether and how attractive Indonesia remains to foreign investors. Some really tough and interesting questions. First, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Indonesia Deposit Insurance Corporation, LPS. A little bit of housekeeping, please. If you're tuning in virtually and are having any problems with audio or visual quality, please refresh your browsers. Of course, we're going to be having some really insightful conversations on stage, but you are all important and vital to the conversations that we're going to be having. And we're going to be inviting you to participate in polls that we're going to be taking throughout the day. And if you whip out your phones, I'd like to show you how it's going to work. So you're going to see a QR code. Please scan that on top of the screen here or at your tables. And that way you'll be able to respond to the polls and also sending questions to the moderators on stage. So let's practice. Everybody got their phone out? All right. A very super important, tough question. First question of the day. Which of these Indonesian dishes is the best? Gado-gado? Nasi goreng, rendang, satay. I know I've got my favorite. Please put in yours and we'll see what there we go. Oh, it's shifting, still shifting. Look at that. It looks like rendang takes it for the moment. So now that you know how it works, please participate in our polls throughout the day. It's a lot of fun. And finally, please join the conversation and engage with us on social media using the hashtag BBG CEO Forum. Let's get started.
Please welcome to the stage Lana Celestianingsi, Vice Chairman, Indonesia Deposit Insurance Corporation, IDIC.
Good morning. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable Mr. Purbaya Yudi Sadewa, Chairman of the Indonesia Deposit Insurance Corporation, or LPS. Professor Paul Romer, Nobel Laureate of Economics in 2018. Distinguished Bloomberg Media Top Management Senior Editors and Journalists. Distinguished speakers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, greetings of virtue. It is truly an honor for the Indonesian Deposit Insurance Corporation, or LPS, to warmly welcome all of you today to the Bloomberg CEO Forum 2024. This forum really has developed so well since we firstly supported this forum during the Indonesia G20 presidency in 2022. As you know, IDIC is a solo sponsor for this event. This is why I'm standing here. So we are pleased to have cooperation with Bloomberg in organizing this forum. Bloomberg CEO Forum really has become a prestigious forum that gathers business leaders, investors, philanthropists, and regulators from all over the world, which offers a unique platform for networking, knowledge sharing, and catalyzing potential strategic partnership among the distinguished delegates. Ladies and gentlemen, a stable banking industry is a vital catalyst for the growth of the economy in the world, including in Indonesia. This is true. This is the area where the Indonesian Deposit Insurance Corporation, or LPS, plays a very important role. LPS is a deposit insurer and bank resolution authority, which covers all 106 commercial banks and more than 1,500 rural banks in Indonesia. The deposit insurance coverage for your bank deposit is up to 2 billion Indonesian rupiah, or is about 128 US dollar for each depositor per bank, and we cover both deposits that are denominated in Indonesia rupiah and foreign currencies. Furthermore, in 2028, 4 years from now, LPS will also provide guarantee to the insurance companies through a policyholder protection program and liquidation of insolvent insurance companies. In addition, LPS is also part of the Indonesian financial safety net that manifests as the Financial System Stability Committee, aiming to safeguard the Indonesian financial system stability. With LPS on duty, you will feel safe, worryless, and certain to invest and use financial products in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia plays a major role in the world economy. To this date, we are world's foremost population and the 10th largest economy by its purchasing power parity. Indonesia's economy has been characterized by its resiliency from the Asian financial crisis in 1997-1998 to the COVID-19 pandemic. Indonesia has consistently demonstrated its ability to adapt and thrive the face of change. During this period, Indonesia experienced a harmonious balance of low inflation, manageable interest rate, and steady economic expansion. To boost Indonesian economic growth beyond 5% long-term average, it is important to address several key areas such as economic diversification, human capital development, innovation and digital transformation, and sustainable practices of green and blue economic. This is why the topic of this event will be covered in the Bloomberg CEO Forum is about through of transition to continuing growth. Moreover, a part of this forum, we also present 2 breakout rooms. The first one, we are going to have insight from Professor Paul Romer, the Nobel laureate for this theory of indigenous growth. And the second breakout will explore the potential of seaweed industry in Indonesia, which is presented in collaboration with Coordinating Ministry of Maritime and Investment Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, closing the spotlight on the behalf of Indonesia Deposit Insurance Corporation, or LPS, I would like to thank all of you for attendance and support this event. Last but not least, probably you know the tagline of LPS, or maybe you don't know. Okay, allow me to sing a little bit, okay? To sing the LPS tagline. ku aman ada LPS. It means I feel safe because of LPS. Thank you very much. I wish you all productive session and enjoy the Bloomberg CEO Forum. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Again, thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage Pandu Sjahrir, founder and managing director, AC Ventures, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Olivia Poe.
Hi everyone, thank you all for being here today. My name is Olivia and I'm so happy to have with me here on this panel Pandu, one of the most prominent investors in Asia whose name honestly needs no introduction to this room. But yes, very excited and happy to be able to have an open and candid discussion about scaling digital infrastructure in Indonesia today. Okay. So Indonesia, at least from where I sit, is in a very, very interesting spot. You know, it's attracting lots and lots of investments from big tech firms. Microsoft, for example, is investing $1.7 billion to build out AI and cloud computing infrastructure in the region. NVIDIA and Indosat are planning to build out a $200 million AI center here. You know, demand has just been crazy for these racks and racks of powerful servers that feed our insatiable appetite for the internet. And more recently, thanks to the generative AI boom, the Metas and Microsofts of the world are increasingly relying on these powerful servers to build software to train patterns that recognize patterns from the flood of text, images, and videos on the internet. So Pak Pandu, maybe to start us off and to set some context, what do you think is the competitive advantage Indonesia brings to the table here? Why are all the big tech firms here? What's in it for them?
Okay. First, thank you, Bloomberg, for doing this, and also Mr. Chairman, Yudi, thank you also for putting everyone together. It's been a big week in Indonesia this week. We hosted the Indonesia-Africa Forum. Today, Pak Yudi's forum, Bloomberg's forum, and also later tomorrow is our Indonesian Sustainability Forum, and just happens to be the Pope is here. So it's been we're just in the middle of the week, and so glad the enthusiasm by everyone, especially regarding Indonesia. So answering your question, you know, for the first minute, because I know it's right before lunch, I want to get you excited for lunch. The one thing that we all recognize today is that it is not an easy time. It's very much a transition year everywhere. Whenever you see about talking to somebody, their career, their lives, the country that they live in, it's a transition year, right? We will have an election in November in the US that everyone is thinking, and how does it mean for us, right? And I think geopolitics for all of you that are decision makers are probably top of mind. And this is a lot of changes happening in the world. And frankly, for investors, what you want to see is stability. And that's why when you ask why Indonesia and ASEAN in a bigger picture, we're one of the very few bright spots where there's very good political stability. Indonesia in particular, we've been blessed that we have a transition. It's an 8-month transition, you know. UK is 1 day, here's 8 months. And the good thing is there is a good view of where things will go. The president-elect, I think we're 46 days left, right, before the new government that sets in. And quite a bit of the focus, if you see the discussion has been focused on economic growth. Now, if you are CEOs, regional CEOs, global CEOs, your top of mind, number one, is do you have political stability? Number two, what is the upside for us investing? Because political stability is number one, then upside. And then lastly, what does the country want to do? And what I would say is that Indonesia today is one of the very few places in the world where you can have the two great forces, both China and the US, can invest and invest safely, right? And then number two, if you talk about economic growth, we have already always talked about the demographic dividends and the likes. The good thing is that most of them now are entering productive age. So the question by astute investors is that, what's next? The answer is, how can you increase productivity? Now, going back to your question, is also the question of the role of technology. In my personal view, AI will be more relevant and more significant than internet itself. I'm not going to go deeper on this one because I think the story is being written. The one thing that a country such as Indonesia can do is to invest in the infrastructure to support that development. And when you talk infrastructure, it's not necessarily just data center, but the human capital associated with it. So, big picture today, I would say, these are the growth stories for Indonesia. Political stability, I would say, is paramount. I can talk endlessly on the political situation outside. But Indonesia today, alhamdulillah, relatively good. And the focus of the president-elect and the team really was on consistent and sustainable economic growth. I think I'll stop there.
Very good perspective. I just want to delve a little bit deeper, actually, on 2 points you mentioned. I think political stability and the importance AI plays in the move forward. So let's expand a bit about Indonesia's plan for AI, right? You're part of Prabowo's transition team.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit more about the incoming administration's discussion about developing sovereign AI for Indonesia's national interests and security?
Okay, just to be clear, I was just in the campaign, and then I'll leave it to the team to do whatever it takes to focus on the next government. But the hope for investors such as myself is how can we build first the digital infrastructure, and that's related to data center, the easiest. The most important is actually two. Number one is to have access, and this is a bit technical, access to clean water, access to renewable energy. Thankfully, Indonesia has quite a bit. And then obviously, in terms of data sovereignty, and that's probably top of mind for a lot of the 5-6 biggest off-takers in the world on this. When you talk about the development in AI, all the upstream actually is happening really in the US. And to be honest, China is making a very big push. So I'm so glad how the Chinese has evolved so fast in creating their own version of OpenAI. And that development in its own is just fantastic to talk about. Indonesia will be a user of it. We just had a long discussion on AI a couple of days ago in Bali. For all of us, I think for all of you, to be very pragmatic about it, change is happening. The question is the rate of change in each of your businesses. If you are consumer facing, you'll see it faster. In the B2B, it's already happening. So it's how you evolve and willing to embrace change. I'm talking really big picture because we talk AI so much, but the question in top of your mind, is it really happening in my business? In our business, it's happening, especially on the cybersecurity front. Indonesians, fortunately, we don't really go to war. So our mindset is always a mindset of happiness. But the best cybersecurity talent is always in areas of conflict. And imagine, we just recently had 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago, a breakout, right, in one of our data center, the national data center. It's because we don't live in constant state of paranoia. We didn't know what to do. Actually, if you test it, Pak Yudi, sorry Pak Yudi, this is like true, right? In a lot of the government places, if you try to hack, most likely you can. And this is a problem because now the business of hacking has become a professional business. I'm sure there are unicorns out there that are simply doing this as a business, and it's like an organization. I'm trying to get smart on it. I mean, thankfully I've invested a little bit on this, but all of it is really in conflict areas, the best talent. So all I'm saying, why is it relevant for you? All of you are CEOs or decision makers. This thing will happen very fast, very swiftly. What is happening with AI is actually how do you create cybersecurity to go, in terms of fighting your own AI. That's also something that is being developed today. And if you are not open-minded and willing to embrace and take risks on this, our business, especially on the B2C side, will feel very significant effect, okay? And I don't know how much deeper I can go into this, but please keep an open mind on this, okay?
So cybersecurity and AI, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay. I also want to talk a little bit about, how the crucial part of AI boom kind of centers also on the buildings needed to sustain our digital workings of modern life, right? The vast amount of resources required also makes expanding a little bit more complicated. From some of the conversations I've had, a lot of issues, two main issues come up. One is power, the other is supply chain.
Yes.
How is Indonesia navigating this, or as an investor, how are you looking at this picture and sussing it out?
Yeah, I've been going around the last couple of months, traveling around the world and trying to attract FDI. And one of the things is that, Pandu, everybody's looking for another place to essentially de-risk their supply chain. What can Indonesia do? Frankly speaking, our neighboring country, Malaysia, has done a very good job. It's simply because there's no transition. In a transition, usually people say, hey, most of their things like, what am I going to do next after this? So Malaysia's taken a little bit of leap, especially in data center. They signed up close to over 3 gigawatt of data center, while Indonesia today, with everything signed, maybe 1.5 gigawatt. So imagine a country that is 1/10 the population or 1/15 of the population of Asia, but 2 times the data center need. And I asked, what is the usage for? Some of it is actually for Indonesia. So question, what are we doing here? So this is going to be the challenge, but also the opportunity. There is a big boom happening in data center, and I think it's here to stay. Last night, I'm sure some of you saw the announcement of Blackstone buying AirTrunk, and that gives you the valuation perspective of, and this is already an established company, right? Imagine for Greenfield, the businesses. And I think this will have a significant effect. The second one, I think that people haven't talked about, and I think you will talk about the next 6 months, is in the business of semiconductor. What is happening in Taiwan, you have to watch very carefully. There is going to be a significant move in terms of not just capital formation, but also value chain moving. They have to de-risk. And this is happening today. The question is, will it be Vietnam? Will it be Malaysia? Or will it be Indonesia? That's our job to essentially say, please, Indonesia, not bad, The good thing is we sell the most handphone. From an off-taker perspective, the most handphone is in Indonesia. In terms of the usage, the end product for semicon, actually it's all in Indonesia. But we have to develop, right? Because there's a lot of upstream going to downstream. Upstream is the hardest, most of the R&D is there. How can we lock it and move up that value chain? But again, this is a fight for both capital, or a fight for value chain. And, I'm being very open. These are the 3 countries that are fighting for, quote-unquote, talent and capital.
Yeah, talent and capital is so important, right? And like what you mentioned, Indonesia is a hugely populous country. I think the 4th most populous country in the world. And when you talk about Southeast Asia, like Malaysia and Singapore, who are also attracting lots of investment, what role does Indonesia play in the greater ASEAN region in that aspect?
It's a very good question. This was actually a discussion I had this morning with our Malaysian counterparts. We as ASEAN actually very shy, a bit malu a bit. Sometimes, when we talk something, we said, it's okay lah. You go ahead, a bit of that. Actually now, especially after we hosted the G20 a couple of years ago, right? And then the ASEAN summit after that, we, along with our ASEAN counterparts, agree not just to work closer together, but for Indonesia to take a lead. Given the scale and the size of the economy, how can we integrate closer? Number one is obviously how can we create an ASEAN company? And this is important. Why? Because of the capital, the human capital movement. How do you make it very easy for people that works in an ASEAN company, meaning a company that has an establishment over 2 ASEAN countries, can easily get job permits, etc. And then obviously number 2, the medium term, will be a discussion about how do you create a value chain in terms of the grid, power grid, right? And this is all across some of the ASEAN countries. The long term, and I have to leave it to Pak Yudi and the team, etc., is of course in terms of monies, currencies. But that's a bit longer term, and that obviously require quite a bit of political push, I would say. So most important from the business sector will be business-led. How can we create easier, closer business together by investing in each other? Easier. That's the easiest and closest thing we can do. Coupled with our ASEAN countries, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, I think has become very good. Political level, relationship is excellent. Business level too. If you guys notice, the last 24 months, there's been a lot of activities happening between these 3 countries. Followed later, most likely, with Vietnam, and then Thailand, and then Philippines. And Philippines is also extremely important when you talk about geopolitics, what's happening between the US and China. So ASEAN, I think you will see an ASEAN that is becoming more active, a lot of intra-ASEAN trade, and there's a lot of capital too that is moving in to ASEAN. I know this discussion has become more geopolitical discussion, but to be honest, that's my top of mind today is really this, because it will affect how we do things the next 5 years. Now, lastly, I thought also, because for some of you maybe are visitors, first time to Jakarta, first time to Indonesia, and probably you ask, what's the KPI for the government the next 5 years? What I am lobbying, right, is the KPI should be the ease of doing business. That's it. If we are a G20 countries wanting to become a G7 countries, then it should commensurate. Our ease of doing business should be in that level. Full stop. That's the target. After that, you can talk the derivatives of all this.
Very well said. I think very exciting time for Indonesia and ASEAN as a whole. Lots of interest and all that. I'm sure you also agree, like, clean energy is also a big part of the equation. Indonesia will need to invest heavily into renewables to power these data centers in a sustainable way. What impact do you think the additional demand from data centers will have on this kind of transition period then?
Well, massive. I think the shortage, this is new demand. There's 2 big new demand that's happening in Indonesia today is the growth of data center and also the electrification in terms of EV. I think EV, because it started from such a small base, it's grown 100% among 4-wheeler and 2-wheeler, and I think will also still double until next year. I think all of you will wake up to the world of EV probably by end of 2025, and it'll be so topical because then you see every car, maybe every 5 cars, every 6 cars, like, hey, that's an EV, right? And it's happening today also because of what's happening in China. There's about 139 brands of EV cars that essentially will have to consolidate, and everything is being pushed down to Europe and also to ASEAN. Now we have to learn also how do we manage this carefully, because in Thailand it has created a social issue with respect to EV, right? So I would say these will create new demand for renewable energy. Java, which is supposed to be over electrified, right? There's an over supply. Now there's a discussion that we are under supply in the next 2-3 years. And the reason is also has to do with Jakarta having a problem with the air quality, pollution. So now there's already discussion of shutting down a couple of the coal power plants surrounding area. I have to touch on this because we're also having a regional, election. Jakarta is one of them, and Jakarta is not a small city, right? 20 million people, 20,000, 25,000 GDP per capita, so about $500 billion economy is in Jakarta. It's almost like an ASEAN country in Jakarta. So there's an election, and we did a polling. What's so interesting is top 2 issues. Number 1 is employment or unemployment, And the second issue is actually related to life quality and population and pollution. So now whoever is going to be in power, and there's 3 people running, right? This is one idea they have to address immediately. So this will also affect the power shift and fastening the power shift, especially in a place like Jakarta, from a coal-related to non-coal related. I'm not saying coal is going to disappear tomorrow. All I'm saying now, it has become a political agenda in the big cities, especially here in Java.
Definitely top of mind for the new team, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, you poll and this is top 2 issues.
What do you think are some good efforts now and you know, in the short term to source these additional clean energy for the transition?
Most important is having an intra-provincial grid, because a lot of the sources of renewable is not in Java. It's outside of Java. So the most important is investment into grid, national grid, smart grid. And that will be significant. I think it'll be at least $15 to $20 billion that needs to be invested. So those that are thinking of investing logistic and grid, I think there's going to be significant opportunity there, because you need the grid to connect and have the connectivity. And Java will still be about 65–70% of the entire population. They're becoming richer, more productive, higher GDP per capita. All of them want this. The issue of air quality, the issue of energy transition is now top of mind for a lot of the first-time voter, young people, and it's no longer something different, something changed. So this is already, to an everyday person, it's become a topical issue.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, and all of this kind of ties together, right? The geopolitics, the quality of life, and all these investments into Indonesia. Very exciting time, actually. I just want to kind of wrap us up with a bit more forward-looking and zooming out to a more global question. The AI race is here. What role does Indonesia play in this global AI race you see, and what is what you hope to be the end goal?
Well, the end goal for us, Indonesia, as a country, we can grow. Our citizens can become more productive and see Indonesia really as a place of stability, right? I mean, I think that's the end goal of every leaders in the country, is how do you make sure that each of the population can grow. And there's 2 things, obviously, that is a focus of President-elect Prabowo. Is obviously, 1, elevating people. This is an issue in terms of poverty. How do you move from low income? There's about 30 to 40 million of Indonesians today, of our brothers and sisters, that are still living in that line, and how do you increase that, right? It's big picture, right? And obviously, we need to have the economic growth to sustain it, and obviously the 2 challenge that he's focusing, and it's infrastructure, in terms of healthcare and education. When you talk infrastructure, you talk about 20 years. How do we do that? Have enough food, have enough nutrition. So obviously the quality food program will be one of them. And the education becomes very important. And number 2 is in terms of agriculture. We don't touch it here. But that's also an infrastructure play, because Indonesia is so big, right? How do you develop the productivity in the agriculture space? How can AI help? AI will help, obviously, in terms of education and healthcare. Significant. So let's use the good of it. Let's make sure the good of it, and to support it, the easiest is to build the digital infra related to it, right? And we have the clean water. We also have the access to renewable energy. So we need to have a very focused effort thinking, how do you create the best digital infrastructure for our people? Because the offtake is there. And if you're a businessman investing in this business, you know, hey, these people are growing wealthier over time. You know, the next 10 years, 15 years, you can read it. These people are growing wealthier, becoming more sophisticated. The internet and AI will actually lower the cost of knowledge, will lower the cost, hopefully, of healthcare services. So there's going to be significant business opportunity. And underlying all that, most important, is that you have social stability and political stability. And social, I cannot underline enough. You cannot have a place where one state is so wealthy and the other not so wealthy. That will create a strong social tension. So social stability is extremely important, and then political stability equivalently very important. So what I'm so glad about, all of our political leaders, the national leaders, are very cognizant of it and very aware. And the idea of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which is our motto, is being held forward by our leaders. And that's why, I've been going around the world for the last 6 months trying to figure out, hey, what's going on in the US? Hey, what's going on in the Middle East? What's going on in North Asia? I went to China 3 times in that span, and I realized, hey, Indonesia not so bad, Sometimes you are our biggest critic to our own country. But imagine if we just unite, and I'm so glad the president-elect really just focusing now on policies. I think we're going to have a much better start. When you remember 2013, 14, Pak Yudi, when we are there helping, different, because at the time, we don't even know where things are going. Now it's a very clear lead where the country is going, and hopefully the next 6 months we can prove to all of you this is going not just in the right way, but at the right momentum and the right execution. So that's why I'm super excited.
I'm excited as well. Amazing. Thank you so much for all your thoughts and for giving something to chew for us, giving something for us to chew on. Thank you, Pak Pandu.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please welcome to the stage James Chang, CEO Indonesia at Lazada, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Claire Jiao.
Good morning, everyone. Southeast Asia has been a bright spot for e-commerce, especially with slowing growth in China and advanced economies. And as we know in Indonesia, there's very few things we love more than online shopping. So James, let's start with one of the most important achievements of Lazada recently. You've just hit positive EBITDA in July. Do you see this as the start of a gradual turnaround, and what's the next milestone for you?
Yes. So we've been operating in Southeast Asia as one of the pioneers of e-commerce in the 6 ASEAN countries for the last more than 12 years. So it's definitely a big milestone for us because it also means we've been waiting for this moment for more than 12 years and continuous investment during this time. I think what's interesting right now is the whole e-commerce as a sector across Southeast Asia is gearing very close to net profitability. So net profitability means while some companies may continue to invest, while some companies will make the profit, as a whole will have the profitability. And I think this is a very important pivotal moment if you look at the industry level. To give you an example, Southeast Asia has one of the most consolidated e-commerce scene currently, which means large players hold a majority share of the market share. And it's not as vibrant when it comes to a lot of different startups, dot-coms, vertical players. And one of the key reasons is because there's no money to be made in e-commerce industry. But this is all about to change. Once we reach this industry net profitability, our view, and my view actually, is that this is going to create a next revolution, next digital revolution, where, yes, the competition will be fierce, but there'll be more investment coming into the industry. There'll be more players coming into the industry with startups, with different diversities, different solutions, different sectors. And it's going to create a very, very vibrant, where not only 2-3 players leading the way, but combined with so many different diversified players together investing and growing and creating the solution. So I actually think it's a very exciting time. And as one of the key players in the market, what we need to make sure that we do is how do we stay ahead of the game? How do we invest more into the future? How do we create a solid diversification for bigger and more vast competition to be in moving forward. So I think this is a very important time that this industry has been waiting for the last 12 years.
I'd actually like to pose that question to the audience as well. You can scan the QR code on the table or on the screen, but I'm curious for our guests, how do you see Indonesia's e-commerce landscape over the next few years? Do you see it still being dominated by a few big players as we see now? Or do you see that there's a chance for more smaller, maybe niche players to come up, as James is saying? And while we're waiting for those answers to come in, I wanted to ask you, already we're seeing a fair bit of competition. You have Temu, Amazon, TikTok Shopping, and Shopee. For Lazada, how are you looking to claw market share from your competitors, and what are the strategies that you're looking to take now?
Yeah, so it's a good question, because competition definitely is more fierce than before, because 12 years ago, we were in many countries only one. So, the scene is very much different now. But I do think for us, differentiation is going to be one of the key question mark, and how we differentiate. So I've been with Lazada for 12 years, so one of the founding members. So when we first started, when no one really understands e-commerce, or there's no trust in the concept of e-commerce, there's no need to prioritize certain areas or certain categories. Let's grow as much as we can. We grow the supply, we grow the demand. We promote the e-commerce as an entirety. And now, with this current quite fierce competition, with a lot of the different giants in the market as well, diversification is one of the key things that we need to do. And for Indonesia, and this diversification actually, as a group level, we need to, because we're a technology-backed company, we need to invest in certain areas of technology, but also it is very dependent on the market dynamics as well. So for here in Indonesia, one of the key ways we want to continue to invest and diversify is to have a much more stronger supply chain play. Mm-hmm. This means, from an investment perspective, we'll continue to invest strongly into infrastructures, especially in logistics, both in warehousing, fulfillment, last mile delivery network, which is crucial to enable the supply chain. And not only that, we'll be looking to invest into different geographies around Indonesia. Actually, we have exciting news to share. I would like to take this opportunity to share today. We'll be launching, I think for the first time as an e-commerce to do this, we'll be launching next month Lazada Surabaya.
So a Lazada just tailored for Surabaya shoppers.
Absolutely. And that we started from investing into warehousing, delivery networks, and then we're launching our office next week. We have a separate app, separate homepage for the audiences from Surabaya to see much more strongly the demand that products and the services, the campaigns and the messaging that's tailored to the markets in the East Java. But this is one of many Lazadas that I want to create here in Indonesia. And this is backed by a strong supply chain play. Because actually, the retail ecosystem in North Sumatra, or even Makassar, I would not say Indonesia as a whole country is homogeneous. It's very diverse, and also because of a very complex supply chain, it has different pockets of retail ecosystem. And for us to continue our journey on not only expansion, but better serving our customers and SMEs, what better way to do that? To be able to further localize from a total country operation to a market-by-market operation.
You've been all across Southeast Asia. Do you see this as something unique to Indonesia, the need to localize and target maybe secondary cities outside of Jakarta?
So I think this is one of the key things that even outside of Indonesia, that we see this kind of opportunities. You look at the West Malaysia versus East Malaysia. Mm-hmm. You look at the markets of Ho Chi Minh, and then you look at the markets of Hanoi. You look at Manila and Cebu. Actually, Southeast Asia is continuing to develop, and that development and the disposable income, the people's desire for goods, actually it's developing not only in the capital cities, but it's developing throughout the countries. And as they do that, I do believe the opportunity will be there to be able to further localize and diversify into the supply chain. But for Indonesia, it is particularly the most important, and timing is right now, because it's such a large country with phenomenal growth, and this growth is actually not only in Jakarta. Of course, Jakarta is growing as well, but we see this opportunity outside, where actually in some of the outer cities, the consumers are underserved. The service level is poor. If you ship everything from Jakarta, the shipping fee is too expensive. And also, you're not capturing the right localized demand, and the SMEs of those areas that makes up the retail ecosystem of those key cities are not benefiting from the vast boom and the growth of e-commerce sector. So I think for Indonesia, it's absolutely the most critical piece.
Mm-hmm. Other than Surabaya, do you have a few more target cities to launch this?
Yes, we'll be launching another Lazada by early next year, before Ramadan campaign start. But that one, I'll keep it a secret for now.
Okay, okay. But Surabaya, that's for October.
Yes.
Okay, so if you have any shoppers from Surabaya here, you can do your 10/10 shopping from a special Lazada Surabaya page. Actually, I wanted to ask you about Indonesian consumption, because whatever happens, consumption has always been resilient in Indonesia. But if you look under the hood post-pandemic, it's usually been driven by middle income, upper income spending. How do you navigate that kind of price war to target lower income segments? And what do you see driving your GMV?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the way I look at it is, I believe that e-commerce in South Asia, also including Indonesia, has gone through phenomenal growth, but still under-penetrated. I'll share some figures. So right now in South Asia, let's say Indonesia, let's start with Indonesia. I think last year, the e-commerce industry for retail, so consumer commerce, we're looking at about 62 billion US dollar was about last year. It's still on a growing trend. And people ask me a lot, James, like, where's the ceiling? You know, how long it's going to continue? Or, you know, is it slowing down? Of course, it's slowed down because it went from nothing to this level in the last, 12, 13 years. But then if you compare to the penetration of online commerce to the percentage of the total commerce of consumer goods, it's still very low. In some categories, like, for example, groceries, less than 1%. In many of the consumer categories, we're looking at about 20%. But if you compare this figure to other countries which had a lot more mature e-commerce, let's say China, we're looking at some of the key categories more than 50%. Online groceries are double-digit already. Now, but everyone goes, oh, James, you can't compare it to China, right? So I would like to put this into perspective. The total Southeast Asia e-commerce last year was 140 billion US dollar. Last year, South Korea e-commerce was 172 billion US dollar with merely just over 50 million population, reaching more than 10% of the GDP. So then you look at that, then absolutely is underpenetrated. US with more than 1.3 trillion e-commerce industry is still growing at almost 9% on an annual basis. China, even larger e-commerce industry, still continue to grow. So I think we're still not there yet, and even those mature e-commerce markets is still growing its penetrations and sales. So the opportunity is vast. It's a long-winded way to get back to your question. The key is, how do we enable to mirror a lot more of the total retail online is through different solutions. You talk about the price points. Actually, lower price point goods have been growing online quite strongly in the past few years, especially post-pandemic. But the question is why? Is it because e-commerce companies are focusing on lower price goods? I think that's not the answer. I think the answer is actually with the improvement in infrastructure and logistics, and if you look at especially the cost of logistics, now it enables lower price product to be sold online, which before it wasn't able to do that, right? So for example, if you ship something from Jakarta to, let's say, Medan, it will cost more than 60,000 rupiah on a parcel basis. And we believe, moving forward, very shortly, we can do that for about less than just over 10,000 rupiah. You can imagine what kind of product will be now unlocked or enabled because the cost and the barriers of those purchases have come down, right? And this we see everywhere. So I don't think it's, I don't see it as when consumers buy something online, they buy different things. It's like, if I like this kind of apples, just because I buy from online, I buy different type of apples. It's not like that, right? So the key is still a lot of barriers to enable certain categories, certain price points, certain geographies. And as e-commerce industry matures and increases sophistication to provide solution for them, those things get unlocked. And in the past, actually, you're right, only quite high price point were able to be sold because of the cost of doing the business.
I think that's an interesting question that we can also pose to the audience. We have this other question on the QR code asking what best describes your shopping habits. Do you tend to stick with one platform? And if you do go between different shopping platforms, do you do it based on affordability, product choice, customer service, or do you just prefer to go to the malls at the end of the day? And I think that would give us like some insight also on maybe how and why the market remains underpenetrated for a country that does love consumption and shopping. As we wait for those answers, I wanted to ask you, other online shopping platforms have also raised fees on their sellers. Is that a source of padding your margins as well?
Yes, absolutely. So actually, when we started the business, back in the days, there were no fees. It was, I still remember, it was 0% commission. And to the consumers, it's broadly free shipping. And a lot of the big players, including us, were subsidizing a lot of these transactions. I mean, I still remember the first year when we tried to onboard merchants onto the platform and try to explain you should sell online, a lot of the shop owners didn't have internet in their stores, didn't have computers in their stores, didn't have printers in their stores. So we also invested, I remember buying printers for the stores to, let's please work together, we'll buy a printer. So we've kind of continued to invest into it. Now, right now, the fees have gone up since then because it was 0, and of course the fees have to go up. And we've seen we call it the take rate, having increasing quite fast, actually, post-pandemic. It's a combination of different reasons behind this. But one of the key things is definitely our investment into the solutions, technology, infrastructure has not slowed down. So for a lot of these e-commerce, including us, looking into the future, for us to continue to make investment into the market, the fees have to come up. And we also would like the e-commerce industry as a whole to be profitable as well. So you look at China today, it's very, very fierce competition with not only the big players, but also many, many, many players. And yet it's a vastly profitable industry. And I think that adds to the vibrancy. It attracts investors. It sharpens the quality. It sharpens the service, and it sharpens the solutions. And that's what's going to be the fuel that will continue to have e-commerce South Asia to be much more strongly grow moving into the future.
James, we have a few answers coming up on the survey. It seems like majority of people have a preferred platform and stick to that.
Absolutely.
Do you see that as an opportunity to build brand loyalty, or do you see that as a challenge that it will be harder to take customers from your competitors?
Oh, no, I think this is absolutely the right kind of situation in our evolution, right? So as I mentioned, South Korea, for example, actually 6-7 years ago, it was exactly like this, where the big players had all the products online and consumers were purchasing from the big players. Actually, consumers at that time, you asked the question, would you shop from 4 different e-commerce? They say, why? I go to this one and this one has everything that I need. But as what we know is, this is not across globally, what we know is, as consumers increase their trust level and increase their confidence on purchasing online, they increase not only the categories that they buy, they increase the price points that they buy, they increase the frequency that they buy, and ultimately they increase the diversity of different platforms that they go to. And right now in South Asia, I believe we're in this quite consolidated large player having a large share of the market, where moving forward, as the diversity becomes a lot more vibrant and consumers become a lot more confident and also but used to purchasing online, this question definitely we'll see a different answer if we ask this question 5 years later.
Hopefully we can revisit this 5 years later, James. One of the big tactics that online shopping has used in Indonesia is shoppertainment, right? I don't see this as a big feature in Lazada's platform. Is that a deliberate choice, and why?
Yes, so shoppertainment, one of the things that is gaining a large popularity right now, not only in Indonesia, but in South Asia, is live stream-based live commerce.
Yeah.
Watching the live streams and the contents created by the creators or the shop owners, and then making the purchase. This is gaining a lot of popularity. It's a very, we call it the guided sale, which means you are actually inspiring the demand and having person realize the demand. Right now, for Indonesia in particular, for Lazada, we are heavily focused on consumer trigger demand. So, which means, and that's where we want to have a diversification. We want to have different areas of our strength. And I believe at this moment, based on our current technology and the infrastructure we built, the best play for us is actually do a supply chain play. Having the products good quality, good price, closer to you, serve at the best service level, and to fulfill the triggering demand of the consumers is where I want to put the emphasis. There's no right or wrong answer to this. For example, I see very little entertainment factors in Amazon, for example. I see quite a lot of entertainment factors in Tmall, Taobao. So it's not a right or wrong answer to it, but right now we believe that supply chain-based play and better capturing the demand of the consumers with that service level is something that we can do best at in this market.
Earlier this year, there were reports that Lazada had to cut its workforce across Southeast Asia. Is downsizing still on the table for you if you see earnings continue to be pressured? And if so, what are the operations that you think could still be streamlined?
Yeah, this is we did a big transformation earlier this year, and it hit a lot of the news. Also, even the existing teams were quite concerned. Also, we got inferences and calls from our partners, suppliers, asking is everything okay and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Actually, we made the change not because we wanted to reduce the investment. We made the change because we wanted to actually move much faster. So we've been here for the last 12 years, and we've created, we started as a 6 Lazada across 6 ASEAN countries with different co-founders, but kind of linked by the few of the we call it the HQ founding team, and my country at that time was Philippines that we started, and since then, at this current time and situation, e-commerce industry evolved so much, and we have to do much more stronger technology-oriented approach to our business, more infrastructure-oriented approach to our business, and because of that reason, we had to change the corporate structure so that we verticalized a lot of the key structures that we can have synergies across South Asia, and we further localized areas that we need to have further localization. Actually, we see one side of the coin, which is there has been a transformation, but we've also since then have expanded and also hired a lot of team members across all markets, but in a different area. So for us, it was a big transformation where we consciously made a decision. We need to further localize in some things. We need to further centralize certain things. It was not a cost-saving measure. It's a very, very small, at our size today, and we're very technology-driven, it's a very small size of that impacts our cost. So our investment continues to go on. Our recruitment continues to go on. Our team, and hence also launching, different geographies and offices as well. So our expansion is there, but the way we approach has changed, and we did that consciously to ensure that we can leverage strongly the synergies across having a large company as a total technology platform.
There's been a lot of talk about AI in the previous panel. Do you see that being part of your transformation in the next few years, or potentially also replacing staff when AI could do maybe customer service or other services better?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. The impact of AI, this is something that we talk about a lot. We also have different voices within our company. Different people have, different leaders have different opinions on this topic as well. So I'll share my personal opinion on this. So for me, AI feels like it's going to have a profound implication to the e-commerce industry in a way that it kind of feels like last time when we had a smart device or smartphones was introduced with an app ecosystem, that really changed a lot of things. Because back in the days, if you wanted to have a technology software companies, you need to have a lot of engineers. You need to invest in a lot of infrastructures. It was not a small company thing. But with the introduction of the smartphones, where a personal computer is being available to everyone, easy accessibility and app ecosystem created an ability for startups to compete with those who have large resources, those who have a deep technology expertise and long-time R&D. And a lot of the companies emerged from that. But not only a lot of companies emerged from that, it created a lot of different diversity of offerings, solutions, softwares, different companies. And that really changed the dynamics. The AI feels like that. It's that level of profound implication is the feeling that we have. So you think about it, one of the key things that we pride ourselves is our algorithm. Actually, algorithm is a form of AI. And this algorithm has been built over time with significant amount of data, significant amount of data scientists, R&D, and investment into perfecting the model. And very large companies have this algorithm, which is one of the key assets. Actually, I believe that in the future, with the support of the AI, startups or small companies are able to enjoy a very sophisticated algorithm capability. And that alone really increases the level of the playing field, right? It reduces the barrier of these companies be able to enter the market and to compete with the large companies. So yes, one way to look at it is AI will give increase in productivity, and that productivity would have implications to the workforce. I think that's one way to look at it. But if I look at the industry as a whole, I look at the other side of the coin, which is with this technology, I think there's going to be a lot more companies and service offerings and solutions that's coming to the market. The e-commerce that's so under-penetrated right now, I think it's going to, if not anything, expedite the growth and the penetration of this industry. It will make the industry go much, much bigger and catch up much faster to those who are more mature in the industry. And when it does that, on a net basis, will this technology create more opportunities, more jobs in the ecosystem itself and the players and the partners that support the ecosystem, from the customer service, from logistics, from data centers and whatnot? I think as a whole, I believe it's going to have a very positive impact. And of course, for us, as one of the pioneer and leading player in this market, we also have to make sure that we stay ahead of this game. So we would invest more. I assume a lot of the other big tech companies will invest more to make sure they don't fall behind in this kind of very exciting yet more challenging competitive environment in the future.
One of the big themes of e-commerce last year was government regulation, with Indonesia restricting online shopping on social media platforms. Are there still any policy risks you're watching out for? Are you expecting any uncertainty from the leadership transition in October? And as Pandu mentioned earlier, do you have a KPI for the next government?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely for us, the government with these regulations are looking after the best interests of the people and the public and the economy. And as one of the key players, we absolutely support and comply to the government regulations. If there are areas of opportunities that we can further contribute with our experience in other countries, with our experience in, actually globally, because we're a part of the Alibaba group, so we have different experiences in different countries that we can provide information, provide, some of the use cases, some of the test cases, some of the different policies that we believe particularly help to fuel the economy. Absolutely would like to play that role. I think the industry is still very young, and I believe that the rules and the regulations and the government's check and balances in this industry will continue to go on. And I think it's absolutely also necessary. That's one of the key things that will help and to foster the vibrancy of the industry. So at this young stage, the more guidance and from the government, I think is something that we welcome. And if there's a role that we can play, we'd love to play our role as well.
Mm-hmm. As we near the end of the panel, I wanted to look a bit more long-term. Lazada aims to reach an annual GMV of $100 billion by 2030. That would mean growing by around 4 to 5 times. How do you plan on getting there, and any levers in particular that you're thinking of pushing?
Yes, so right now, if you ask me, like, okay, what are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that, and how much they contribute to get there, it's hard for me to answer. Yeah. It's a still very dynamic industry at large, and also South Asia is still on a very fast-growing trend. I think there's a few things. I talked about diversification and kind of our views on this. But the second thing is, we believe that right now, one of the key things we have to do is to build a fan base. What is a fan base? It's the group of people who would love your services and your solutions and would be very sad if you close down. I think that's a fan base. And we want to continue to build that fan base. I don't think, like, because one company sells more phones than the other company, is that company a great company and the other company is not? If one brand sells more shoes than the other company, does that make them a better company? I don't think it's like that. I think the whole notion of a great organization is you play the leadership role and you continue to perfect and improve your services and offerings so that you build that fan base. So we're going to focus on doing that. As I mentioned, supply chain is one of the key areas that we're investing, but this is not the only areas that we're investing. Also investment in AI and continue to do the research and development, continue to map out and invest in the ecosystem players, like areas like logistics, infrastructures, payments. These are also absolutely critical. And as we do that, and as industry becomes vibrant, as we continue to take our share of this industry, I think that's the best way for us to achieve our long-term goal.
You mentioned investments in AI, supply chain, and other things. How much more capital injection do you think Lazada will need from Alibaba to achieve those goals?
So actually right now, we are looking at various of different opportunities. And definitely our goal is to continue to invest because we believe the industry itself is still in an early stage. In a grand scheme of things where we don't know what the end is, we still believe it's a young industry. It's an early stage. But it's very dynamic and it's evolving, that's for sure. Whenever we see a great opportunity, we're not hesitant to make the investment. Lazada turned profitable, but can we invest everything we wanted to invest purely using the profits that we create is not at this moment possible. We just turned profitable. Mm-hmm. However, as a large organization, as part of Alibaba, Alibaba definitely as a whole have resources. And we do believe that South Asia is a very exciting place and there's a lot more growth to come. So whenever opportunity presents, we're definitely not shy away from making the investments. And I think this is something that, with also the government in transition, expect a lot more stability. That stability creates a lot more favorable environment for investors and also companies to make long-term bets and investments.
So we have Lazada turning profitable. You see the industry turning net profitable. Are we just at the start of a boom, the next boom for the sector?
I would say we're almost there, but not fully there.
Okay.
I truly think that there are a few things that are underlying catalysts for this. Definitely the consumer awareness, the consumer confidence. I think that is there. That has been achieved, right? The industry net profitability and attracting the capital, from institutional investors is definitely required, and we're not there yet, but I believe we'll get there soon enough. The infrastructure and the barriers to entry to bring it down, it will be quite disrupted moving forward. Some of the key core infrastructures, for example, payment infrastructures, logistics infrastructure, have been improved phenomenally. I think the AI will be the next big thing. So when the financial situation and the availability of the capital is more abundant, when the infrastructure and the cost of starting the business is going down, which already have done in few areas of the key enabling part. Then with the AI taking to the next level, bringing down the, increasing the competitiveness and a technology advanced front, I think that would be the main trigger. I don't know what will be the exact timing, but I just feel that a lot of these things are coming together nicely and more closer. We're not there yet, but I'm very confident that it will come, and maybe sooner than we all believe.
Hopefully, big things coming up for Indonesia and for Lazada in Indonesia. James, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Rajeev Menon, President, Asia Pacific, excluding China at Marriott International, and Sandiaga Uno, Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy of the Republic of Indonesia, for a conversation with Bloomberg's K1 Ha.
The travel and tourism industry here in Asia Pacific is a huge driver of economic activity. This year alone, the industry is expected to create about 190 million jobs across the region, with tourism contributing to nearly 9% of the region's GDP. Of course, there are headwinds and challenges, and we're so grateful to have two fantastic, distinguished guests here with us to help us unpack that. Rajeev, let me start with you. Where are we with the travel rebound post-pandemic?
So it was very clear that as humanity at large was locked up during COVID, we all figured out nothing was more important to us than our freedom, ability to travel and spend time with family and friends. So what we saw around the world was every single country, as they opened their borders, people flocked out. In Asia Pacific ex-China, which is the region I represent, we saw full recovery in the last quarter of 2022. And since then, we've been growing double-digit quarter on quarter. Just this year, year-to-date July, our RevPAR growth, which is revenue per available room, for, again, Asia Pacific ex-China is at 14%. And Indonesia is actually leading with 16% RevPAR growth.
That's really huge. What was it before the pandemic, post-2019, or before 2019?
Well, again, the numbers were in that 5 to 6% range, but keep in mind that, a lot of it is strong recovery coming quarter after quarter. So it is clear in what we are seeing around the world that people have prioritized travel and experiences and are willing to pay more and really put aside other spending so that they can travel.
That's really great. Everybody wants to get out there. That revenge travel is still very much at work, right? Now, Minister Uno, Indonesia reopened its borders in January of 2022. What would you say has really worked for Indonesia in terms of welcoming back foreign travelers, and where are still the challenges ahead?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in this panel, and thank you for Bloomberg to help my KPIs by organizing this conference. You are the quality travelers that we are targeting. Not only that you come here and stay longer, but you spend more into the local economies. So this type of events, we call it MICE event, has been consistent in putting our recovery stronger.
We're glad
than
to do our
expected.
part.
Thank you. So we see MICE event because we kick off, the opening of the border was April 2022 because we must prepare for the G20. And then the G20 itself was a very great success. It was followed by our chairmanship of ASEAN last year. And this year we hosted a series of MICE events, including one of the biggest is the World Water Forum in Bali. I just got back from Bali for the Indonesia-Africa Forum, and which also been able to attract a lot of quality travelers. The second thing that we, other than the MICE, that we have been focusing and really work well post-pandemic is the shift from the 3S of yesteryears of sun, sea, and sand for tourism in Indonesia into the new 3S in additions, which is serenity, spirituality, and sustainability. So this new strategy to attract more travelers, which focus on trying to find a more personalized, localized, customized, and yet smaller in size type of travel is really showing us the key. And in 2023, I was just reporting to Pak Purbaya that we jumped 10 rankings in the World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Development Index to number 22. We nearly broke the top 20. So in ASEAN, our position is very strong. And globally, we're even ahead of Belgium, Turkey, and New Zealand. So this type of quality tourism have provided us with a whopping 45 to 60% increase in ARPA. We call it, well, in the telecommunication industry is ARPU. In our industry is ARPA, average revenue per arrival. It used to be in the 900 to 1,000 level per arrival of tourists. Today, we're registering 1,600 US dollars per arrival. That means people are spending more, and the average length of stay is also increased to more than 2 weeks. So this really helped the recovery. And finally, third is the focus on the digitalizations, in particular in new destinations. We have tourism village that's very, very popular among Gen Z and millennials. They would like to go for a hidden gem, and through digitalizations, they were able to locate and identify this new experience. And unlike my generations, who probably spend twice, maybe one time a year to do vacation, these young generations, they go on vacations every other week. So they say, oh, we need healing because otherwise we're going to have mental stress.
Of course, they need to populate the Instagram.
Right, and you know, they need to engage with their followers.
Yes, yes.
So they need to showcase that they're actually work from destinations.
That's right.
Which actually bodes very well for my industry, but I think this allow us to strategize more into tourism that create good quality jobs. So per today, tourism created 25 million jobs in Indonesia, and with my other portfolio of creative economy, it's another 25 million jobs, and this is 50 million jobs that are really good quality and very, very close to the hearts of the Gen Z and the millennials.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, you mentioned, for example, that the MICE business is really strong for Indonesia, and yet we know that business travel hasn't completely come back yet, right? How do those two things square away?
So to put it into perspective, business travel in Asia Pacific actually came back 100%. It's more so in the West where it has lagged recovery. Now, the reality is, as we all came out of COVID, leisure-led recovery.
Yeah.
Simple. People came out and spent time with their families and friends. Right soon after, we started seeing MICE started to come up, obviously G20, the ASEAN chairmanship for Indonesia. And we also started to see that given much of Asia is driven by relationships, that people came out very early. So our corporate business actually had fully recovered by second quarter of last year.
That's great for Indonesia.
For Indonesia, for actually Asia Pacific ex-China, which is really positive from that point of view.
That's great. Now, Rajeev, I mean, obviously governments like Indonesia recognize the importance of travel and tourism to the GDP. What more would you like to see in terms of cooperation between the governments and industry that could really fuel more travel that's sustainable?
So I have to say, Pak Sandi, and I talk about him all the time, has really been a role model in terms of being a partner in tourism. Because when you think about the growth of tourism domestically and intra-region, it has been really strong. We continue to see that as more FDI comes into ASEAN, particularly, emerging middle class is getting out and traveling more, which means we need more infrastructure spending from the government. We need new destinations. You know, sustainable tourism is not just about continuing to drive more tourism into Bali, but President Jokowi's vision of creating those 10 Balis. So we just recently opened a hotel in Labuan Bajo.
Great hotel. I stayed there.
Thank you.
I couldn't afford, though, with the government budget, but later on, after I finish my terms in about 6 weeks, I'll stay in that hotel again.
You're very kind, sir. But to put it in perspective, as you know, destinations like Labuan Bajo or Belitung or Lake Tabo continue to get developed, we need more infrastructure, we need more air connectivity, more international airlift, because that's how you'll see tourism thrive in these destinations. And from that perspective, you know, Pak Sandi and his team have been incredible partners to the industry. And we hope that that trend is picked up by other governments around the region, because it goes a long way in ease of travel and growing tourism in each of these markets.
Minister, what do you think governments like Indonesia can do better in terms of working with industry?
I have Pak Rajeev and Pak Ramesh on speed dial. For those of you who are Gen Z and millennials, you don't know what speed dial means. But you're familiar with speed dials, right? So we're always in contact. And I kept on asking through my deputy here, Kiki, what could we do more? Because I come from private sectors. I used to face the difficulties of private sectors dealing with government, with the attitude in the past, which has greatly changed during the last 20 years, whereby things that could be done today, why do it yesterday? Do it, why don't we do it tomorrow? Now we change it. We anticipate what the industry would need, and because of data, we're doing data-driven policies and evidence-based type of scenario planning. It really helps, and therefore during the pandemic, we're able to support the industry by some of the programs that really could sustain the industry. And I'm so very happy that the scarring effect that we were worried in the hospitality industry is not happening. I came to, this is one of the legendary hotel. It used to be called the Hilton in Bali. Now it's called the Ayodhya. I stayed there. When I was there last year, it was only one tower opening with 100. Today, it's all 535 rooms open with 94%. And majority are from India, from Australia. So, you know, we were worried that they could not really rehire back some of the employees, they were able to go through it.
Yeah.
And
are there specific, government initiatives where you feel like this could really move the needle in terms of working with industry? Or
we need to continue to do the training and retraining, and not just the normal training, but we need to go on upskilling, because we need to strengthen their skill base, reskilling, because some of the skill that they used to have pre-pandemic is no longer applicable now, and new skilling. There's new skills that they would need. So we have about 6 tourism polytechnic institutes across Indonesia, whereby every year around 10,000 students would graduate, and not only graduate, they're already absorbed by the industry, so much so that they didn't come even to the graduations. We said that, please pick up your diploma. Oh, sorry, we're already working in Bali. We're already working some in Dubai, some in Maldives. So this is something that we believe government needs to continue to work on investment to the human capital aspect on the hospitality, because that's one of the key elements of Indonesia's success in the tourism: nature, culture, adventure, and human capital.
yeah, such important work.
Just to add to what Pak Sandi just said, for us, 3 things have really played a key role. One is simple visa on arrival from markets like in India, particularly China, and a number of other countries, has been a game changer because it's just allowed flow of tourism. Second, domestic air connectivity. Put in perspective, pre-COVID, mix of our Indonesia business was in the high 30s. This year, we are at 47%, and we have 77 open hotels across 16 destinations in Indonesia and a pipeline of another 42. This is a growth of 70% in terms of Indonesian travelers to our business. And third, to what Pak Sandi just talked about, employment opportunities. There was real fear because millions of jobs were lost during COVID. Not only have we fully recovered, it's about preparing the generation for the future. Today we have about 3,500 interns across ASEAN, 147 universities that we have MOUs with, where we continue to bring in new talent to train them and create this future pipeline. So I think not much of this would have been possible if we did not have the government support.
Yeah. Now, Minister, one of the things when we talk about visas and visa, the ease of visa really obviously brings so many travelers to the country. And I know some countries like Thailand and Vietnam, for example, are talking about a Schengen style, what they have in the EU, right, where you basically have one visa and gets you around the region. Is that something that Indonesia is also looking to participate in, if that comes through?
Yes. When you talk about ASEAN as a single destination, this is the low-hanging fruits, because Thailand attracted 40 million, Malaysia is about the same, 40 million-ish, and Singapore, Vietnam. We should offer an ease of moving within the ASEAN countries. So ASEAN as a single destination could be the low-hanging fruits that we could convert into a more quality tourism. Secondly is we believe that the visa-free regime that we had in the past, that was changed during COVID, and now we have the e-visa on arrival, is something that we've been pushing to the President and other ministries, because we're probably one of the very few countries that still have visa on arrival. Some of the countries, our neighbors, have scrapped the visa requirement, and that's have enabled them to increase the tourist visits post-pandemic.
Great. And is that a conversation that Indonesia is helping to lead in terms of?
Yes, we have the ASEAN Tourism Forum. This forum is among the ASEAN tourism ministers, and one of the resolutions that we have put forward for each country to adapt is the ASEAN type of a single destinations that covers the visa requirements. So when you arrive in Indonesia, you would not need additional headache to go through immigrations or other visa requirements.
That's exciting. How soon do you think that could be in place?
I hope the next minister, because I'm looking forward to my end of my tenure in 6 weeks. I think the next minister should focus on this and to be finally implemented by the ASEAN Tourism Forum in Johor Bahru in Malaysia, January 2025.
That is exciting. Now, Rajeev, I know just from talking to a lot of industry experts that sustainability is obviously something that's so critical for the tourism industry, especially when you have so many millions of people arriving here to Asia Pacific, and yet the industry here in Asia seems to be a little bit behind the curve still. What would you like to see in terms of how government and industry might work better to really drive sustainability and tourism forward?
There is incredible opportunity. So let me just take a step back. As a company, we are the largest hotel company in the world. And earlier this year, we got formal approval from SBTi for our science-based targets, both for short-term and long-term carbon reduction goals. The company is very committed to 2050 net zero. What we have been doing now, putting very specific targets in place. By the end of next year, we are having every single one of our hotels certified, on energy usage. We are very focused on, given really 65% of carbon emission is driven by energy usage. So we're very committed to trying to get green energy, obviously working closely with governments, re-looking at technology to improve energy usage. The other thing I would say is waste management, which in our business ends up being a big issue, both on food waste, water waste, and so on. Reducing landfill. I'll give you a simple example where we are working very closely with Pak Sandi and his team is in Bali, Marriott Business Council. We have some 25 hotels are working on a project called Sungai Watch, which is really clearing the river across Bali. And this has been an incredible effort. An initiative that Pak Sandi has called Surplus, where there's a lot of food that goes into the dustbin every evening, is picked up by the teams and sold at highly reduced rate. Similarly, in other markets like Australia, as an example, there's an organization called Oz Harvest that is picking up this food from hotels across the board. So there's a number of initiatives, but ultimately for us, we manage our business through balanced scorecard approach. So every hotel has been given very clear, defined targets, and we measure them against those. Because ultimately, what's measurable is achievable, and we believe that if we need to get to net zero by 2050, we need to be very aggressive between now and our short-term target of 2030 and then beyond.
What are you seeing in terms of the conversations with the various governments across the region? I mean, is there cooperation? Is there commitment to working together to establish some standards, for example?
Yeah, we have been very active within the platform of UN Tourism and the WTTC. Some of our initiative, or we call it signature programs, is to make a program that would enable Rajeev or Sunita, who are traveling from abroad, to offset their carbon footprint. And this is very popular in Bali. Like last week conference, there are numbers of travelers who wants to plant their own mangrove trees, or they would, through our cooperations, would send somebody to plant the mangrove trees and monitor digitally. So this is the type of green jobs that we think the industry is able to create in the new settings, whereby sustainability is very key. And I think not just planting mangrove trees, but restoring the coral reefs or cleaning the river is it's very, very popular among travelers now, and they want to travel with a purpose. So this is something that we see. And if I could mention one more thing, that is what we're seeing post-pandemic is traveling that is linked to music festival.
Yes, huge.
Right?
The Swift, the Swift.
I got scolded by my president when we could not get Swift. So I prayed. We got Coldplay, okay. We got Ed Sheeran, okay. Nobody got really that excited. Then I prayed, we need something big, otherwise I will lose my job. And then boom, the announcement that Pope made the visit here.
There you go.
So today you're sharing the limelight with Pope Francis, who's making the trip to Indonesia after 35 years from the last Pope visit to Jakarta. So I think event-based tourism is huge now, and we're going to have like Bruno Mars for 3 days. This is
exciting.
Any Bruno Mars fans here? And I think because of the size of the market in Indonesia, and we need to have more flexibility. And next year we're going to launch the Indonesia Quality Tourism Fund together with Pak Purbaya also. This is designed to attract good quality MICE events as well as music or any other world-class events to Indonesia.
That's exciting. Of course, there are headwinds, all around us, and there were some numbers, economic indicators out of China that weren't so great. And I'm just wondering, Rajeev, if you look around the region, what do you see as the major possible headwinds, especially as maybe the China, slowdown continues?
Well, consumer confidence in China is definitely on the weaker side, although outbound Chinese travel has rebounded. Now, again, from our perspective, we are 90% recovered. Markets like Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, even Indonesia have seen full recovery on the Chinese travelers because the consumer that we were attracting was a little different than the mass Chinese travel. I also am concerned, as many other leaders are, about the geopolitical situation. The situation today in a market like, say, Bangladesh or New Caledonia in my part of the world is concerning because it doesn't take too much for these things to erupt quickly. So at any given time, be it Mpox or some of the challenges we've dealt with COVID, those learnings are very much upfront, that we need to stay very agile because the situation in any market can change very, very quickly. But on the whole, tourism still remains a bright spot across the world.
Yeah, and of course you mentioned Mpox. I mean, Minister, when we all went through the airport, right, there's a new health declaration that we all had to fill out, and of course that's Indonesia's effort to make sure that they're keeping an eye on Mpox. What do you think are some of the biggest lessons, maybe just one lesson, learned from the pandemic in terms of what governments like Indonesia can do better to support tourism through these pandemics and possible health outbreaks?
Data management. We used to have scattered data among government agencies, but during COVID, the big lesson learned is we pool all the data together, and now with the Indonesia Satu Sehat, all the data is now pretty much within one pool of data that we can access. Secondly, preparedness, because Mpox is here already, and we just have to reactivate some of the measures that we have during COVID, like the electronic health declarations. And then we have the thermal scanners now on again. And I still have, until now, my mask. Every now and then, because I have an 84-year-old mom, so whenever I visit her, I would use mask. So those type of behavior that we learned during the COVID would stay. And finally, I think there are a lot of headwinds, and I term it in my ministry the FUCA era: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So we as a government that create policies have to be really 360 and front and center with the industry, with the communities, also with the media, to make sure that we are part of this Indonesia Incorporated to prepare for the next challenges. Because we don't have much time. Only 15 years left for us to to convert our demographic dividend, we call it demographic bonus, into higher GDP per capita. If we lose time on this, we will miss the chance in 2045 for us to reach the developed country status. So that's why this government, and I'm happy that the next government theme is continuity. Unfortunately, I was not part of the winning team. I was too early by 5 years, partnering with Pak Prabowo. But I'm very happy that he finally got the mandate from the people. So with continuing the works that Pak SPY, Pak Jokowi have been doing, would accelerate our economic growth and the prosperity of the people, so that we could reach what we call Golden Indonesia by the year of 2045.
Yeah, very exciting goal. Last question to both of you. What's one change, inflection point that you're seeing that could really change travel and tourism here for the region? Or that you'd like to see? Make it up.
Well, from my perspective, what we're already seeing is the digital transformation, and AI is going to have a tremendous impact on our world. Today, 35% of our business in Asia, ex-China, is coming digitally. Now, that is growing double-digit year after year. Now, add the generative AI component to it, how we service our customers, the ability for people to, travel, ease of travel, it'll be a game changer. And I think, think about just Singapore Airport, for example. Sooner, we won't even need passports. And it makes a lot of difference for somebody who spends 3 weeks a month on a plane. Ability to go in and out very quickly helps. And anything that makes travel easier, people are prone to, do more of it.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Minister, what about?
CEO generations, please take more vacations.
Well, with that, thank you so much for your time, Pak Sandi and Rajeev. Please give them a hand. If you've enjoyed these conversations that we've been having through the morning, I really invite you to please tune in to our latest podcast called The Big Take Asia. I actually host the show and one of the hosts. And every week we basically take the biggest, most interesting, most compelling news story and really unpack that with our team of incredible reporters and editors and experts. And it's really a great chance to kind of explore the themes and the issues, the people and businesses in the region. So I really invite you to take a listen and give us some feedback. With that, thank you so much. And please join us for lunch behind those doors.
Thank you.